The incense burned thick in the living room of my parents' colonial-style house in suburban Virginia, just 20 minutes outside Washington, D.C. I sat on the stiff velvet chair they dragged from the dining room, hands folded in my lap like a schoolgirl, while Father Callahan droned on about deliverance and the healing power of prayer. "Lord, free Brittany from this unnatural temptation," he intoned, palms hovering above my head. My mother wept quietly in the corner. My father nodded with grim approval. They had hired the priest after finding the single incriminating text on my phone 2 nights earlier. Nothing graphic, just Catherine's name followed by, "I can't stop thinking about you." That was enough. Conversion prayer, they called it. Healing. I kept my eyes on the carpet, counting the threads, waiting for the nightmare to end. Then my younger brother Ethan, 23 and still in grad school, shot up from the couch. "Stop!" His voice cracked through the room like a whip. "This is wrong. She's not broken. You can't pray her straight." The priest's hands froze midair. My mother gasped. And just like that, the carefully constructed life I had built in the cutthroat corridors of capital strategies began to crack wide open. 3 months earlier, none of this seemed possible. I had been Brittany Hayes, 29, senior strategist at the most exclusive political consulting firm in Washington, gunning for the partnership that would put my name on the door and my face in the Sunday talk shows. The firm handled campaigns for senators, governors, even the occasional presidential hopeful. Loyalty was currency, ambition was oxygen, and any weakness got you fired. Catherine Langford had arrived 6 months before as the new director of digital ops, poached from a rival firm in New York. She was 31, razor-sharp, with dark hair always pulled into a low bun and eyes that missed nothing. Our first meeting was in the glass-walled war room on the 7th floor overlooking the Potomac. We were both assigned to the same Senate race in Ohio, and the client wanted a single lead strategist. Translation: one of us would win the promotion, the other would be quietly sidelined. I hated how instantly I noticed her. The way she leaned forward when she spoke, the quiet confidence in her voice when she dismantled a rival campaign's messaging in under 30 seconds. After the meeting, she caught me in the hallway. "Hayes, right? You're good. But I'm better." She smiled when she said it. Not cruel, just matter of fact. That night I stayed late, rewriting the entire voter turnout model just to prove her wrong. By the time the cleaning crew arrived at midnight, Catherine was still at her desk across the open floor. Our eyes met through the glass. Neither of us looked away. The first time we kissed happened 3 weeks later in the back of a town car after a brutal all-nighter prepping for a debate. The client had loved our joint presentation but demanded we synergize more. Catherine had laughed at the word in the elevator. Synergize. God, I hate corporate speak. Then the car hit a pothole on M Street and her hand brushed mine. The next second we were leaning in, lips meeting with a desperation neither of us had planned. We pulled apart when the driver cleared his throat at a red light. "My place is closer," she whispered. I nodded. That was the night everything changed and the night the clock started ticking on everything we would eventually lose. We swore it would stay professional at the office. No text during work hours, no lingering glances in meetings, no shared Uber rides home. Washington runs on rumors, and a rumor like ours would torch both our careers. The firm's senior partners were old school. The client list included several socially conservative PACs. One leaked photo and we'd be gone, politely of course with severance and a glowing reference that meant nothing. So we became experts at coded language. Coffee run? Meant my apartment at 7 p.m. Review the Ohio numbers? Meant her place after dark. We learned each other's schedules like generals planning a campaign. And every morning I woke up next to her, I told myself the risk was worth it. But the Ohio race tightened. Polling showed our candidate slipping among suburban women. The partners called an emergency strategy session. Catherine presented first, brilliant as always, recommending we pivot hard to education funding. I followed with data proving we needed to double down on healthcare. The room split. Then the managing partner, Richard Harlan, smiled that thin smile of his. "Ladies, the client wants one unified direction by tomorrow. Whoever nails it gets point on the account." Translation: winner takes the partnership track. Loser watches from the sidelines. That night Catherine and I didn't speak about work. We ordered Thai, watched mindless TV, and pretended the competition didn't exist. But when she fell asleep, I slipped out of bed and opened my laptop. I spent 3 hours quietly strengthening my healthcare angle with fresh opposition research I hadn't shared. By sunrise, I had an airtight memo. I emailed it to Harlan directly, and Catherine. Cause and effect. Simple. When she woke up and saw the sent timestamp, her face went still. "You didn't trust me enough to collaborate?" she asked quietly. I told her the truth. Trust doesn't pay the bills. Ambition does. She nodded once, then left for the office without coffee. The first fracture had formed, invisible but deep. The partnership announcement came 2 weeks later. My name was on the internal memo. Catherine's was not. She congratulated me in the break room in front of everyone. Perfect smile, firm handshake, zero warmth in her eyes. That evening she canceled our usual coffee run. I sat alone in my apartment staring at the city lights, telling myself I had done what was necessary. The client loved my revised plan. The candidates' numbers rebounded. Richard Harlan started inviting me into closed-door meetings with actual senators. My future was accelerating exactly as planned. But every time I passed Catherine's desk, the silence between us felt heavier than any argument. We tried to keep the relationship alive on the edges. Stolen lunches in the parking garage. Late-night phone calls where we avoided talking about work. One Friday she showed up at my door with a bottle of the exact red wine we'd drunk the first night we spent together. We didn't speak about the promotion. Instead, we sat on the balcony overlooking the Capitol Dome and pretended we were just two women who had met at a book club. For a few hours it almost worked. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Harlan asking me to fly to Columbus Monday to brief the candidate personally. Catherine saw the screen. "Congratulations," she said, voice flat. "Guess the better woman won." The door closed softly behind her when she left. I didn't sleep. Monday morning the entire firm knew the dynamic had shifted. Catherine was reassigned to a smaller congressional race in Pennsylvania. Still important, but clearly second tier. She accepted the move without complaint, but I caught her in the copy room that afternoon staring at the new org chart. "You could have at least warned me," she said without turning around. I told her I hadn't known the decision was coming. She finally faced me. "We both know that's a lie, Brittany. You chose." "I get it. Just don't expect me to keep pretending this, us, is sustainable." The words landed like stones. I wanted to argue, but the truth was colder. I had chosen. And the worst part was I would choose the same way again tomorrow if it meant protecting the career I had clawed for since college. The Pennsylvania race started going sideways. Catherine's candidate was hemorrhaging support after a leaked audio of him making off-color remarks about women. She worked 18-hour days trying to contain the damage. I watched from the safety of my Ohio victory lap and felt something ugly twist in my chest. Relief that it wasn't me, mixed with guilt that I could have helped if I'd shared my crisis playbook earlier. One night she called at 2 a.m., voice raw. "I'm losing this, Britt. Really losing it." I almost offered to drive up. Instead I said the professional thing. "Send me the latest polling. I'll look at it." She hung up without saying goodbye. The next morning I forwarded her data to my own team as inspiration and claimed the insights as mine in the weekly partner briefing. Cause and effect again. My stock rose. Hers kept falling. My family noticed the change in me first. Sunday dinners in Virginia became interrogations. "You seem distant, honey," Mom would say, passing the pot roast. "Working too hard?" Dad would grunt about how a nice young man might help me relax. I laughed it off, but the pressure built. When Ethan, the only one who had always seen through my careful masks, asked if I was seeing anyone, I lied and said no one special. He studied me across the table and didn't push. Not then. Catherine and I patched things together in fragments. A weekend in a rented cabin in the Shenandoah where cell service was spotty and the outside world couldn't reach us. We hiked, cooked terrible pasta, and for 48 hours remembered why we had risked everything. On the drive back, she rested her head on my shoulder at a stoplight. "I still love you," she whispered. "Even when I hate what you did." I squeezed her hand and said nothing, because admitting I loved her more than the partnership felt like signing my own professional death warrant. The firm's annual retreat in Aspen was supposed to be a reward. Instead, it became the beginning of the end. Richard Harlan announced the shortlist for the full equity partnership. Me, 2 men from mergers, and surprisingly, Catherine. The Pennsylvania race had stabilized after she pulled off a last-minute digital miracle that went viral. Harlan loved a comeback story. Suddenly we were back on equal footing, which meant the knives came out again. During the team-building ropes course, one of the senior partners pulled me aside. "Langford's good, Hayes, but she plays too nice. You've got the killer instinct. Don't let sentiment get in the way." He didn't know about us. He didn't have to. Washington senses weakness the way sharks sense blood. That night in the resort bar, Catherine cornered me. "They're pitting us against each other again. I can feel it." Her fingers brushed mine under the table, where no one could see. "We could refuse to play. Present a joint strategy for the next cycle." I laughed, but it came out bitter. "And split the partnership? They'd laugh us out of the building." Her eyes hardened. "So you'd throw me under the bus twice?" I didn't answer. Instead, I ordered another drink and changed the subject. Later, back in my room, I stared at the ceiling and realized the truth. Love had become a liability. Every minute I spent protecting Catherine was a minute I wasn't protecting my future. The retreat ended with a black tie gala. Catherine wore a deep green dress that made her look like she belonged on magazine covers. I watched her laugh with the senator's chief of staff and felt something ugly rise in my throat, jealousy mixed with pride. When the dancing started, she found me on the terrace. Snow fell softly around us. "Dance with me," she said. "Just once, where no one knows what it means." We moved together under the string lights, bodies close but not touching in any way that could be questioned. For 3 minutes the world narrowed to her hand on my waist, and the scent of her perfume. Then Harlan walked past, raised his glass in approval of team spirit, and the spell broke. We stepped apart like we had been burned. Back in DC, the pressure became unbearable. My parents announced they were hosting a family prayer night with their church group. "Just a little spiritual refresh," Mom texted. I knew what it really was. They had heard rumors I was working too hard with that Langford woman. I agreed to attend to keep the peace. Catherine and I fought about it the night before. "Tell them the truth," she urged. "Or at least tell them you're seeing someone." I snapped that she didn't understand conservative Virginia families. She snapped back that I was ashamed of her. We didn't speak for 3 days. The silence felt like another promotion I had won at the cost of everything that mattered. Then the leak happened. Someone, I still don't know who, forwarded an old email chain between Catherine and me to the entire senior leadership. Nothing explicit, just late-night strategy notes that ended with personal endearments. Harlan called us both in. "This firm cannot afford distractions," he said calmly. "Fix it or both of you are out." Catherine looked at me across the mahogany desk. "Waiting for me to fight for us." I didn't. I promised Harlan it was handled. She walked out without a word. That night she packed a bag and moved to a hotel. I let her go. The partnership was announced 3 weeks later. My name was on it. Catherine's was not. She resigned the next day with a single line in her exit interview. "Some prices are too high." I threw myself into the new role like a woman trying to outrun her own shadow. 14-hour days became 16. I landed 2 new Senate clients and a gubernatorial race in Texas. The partners toasted me at every quarterly meeting. My name appeared in Politico with the caption "Rising Star." On paper, I had everything I had sacrificed for. In reality, I woke up every morning reaching for a woman who wasn't there. Catherine had taken a job at a progressive think tank across town. We moved in the same circles but never spoke. At fundraisers, we nodded politely from opposite sides of the room like polite strangers. The ache never dulled. It just learned to live alongside the ambition. My family noticed the improvement. Mom stopped asking about Catherine. Dad started introducing me to eligible sons of his golf buddies. I went on 3 disastrous dates just to keep the peace. Each time I came home and stared at the empty side of the bed and wondered what Catherine was doing. Ethan was the only one who didn't buy the act. "You look miserable, Britt," he said during one of our rare sibling lunches. "Whatever you gave up to get that corner office, was it worth it?" I changed the subject. But his words lodged like a splinter. Then came the text I never expected. "Catherine, after 4 months of silence. We need to talk." Neutral ground. Tomorrow 8 p.m. Lincoln Memorial. I almost deleted it. Instead I showed up. She waited on the steps, coat collar up against the January wind. No makeup, hair loose, the version of her I had fallen in love with. I'm not here to beg, she said. I'm here to warn you. Harlan's been asking questions about us again. Someone's feeding him old messages. If this blows up now, it takes you down with me. I asked why she was telling me. She looked away toward the reflecting pool. Because despite everything, I still love you. And I don't want to watch them destroy you the way they almost destroyed me. We stood there in the cold. Two women who had once shared everything and now shared only the wreckage. I wanted to reach for her. I didn't. Instead I thanked her and walked away. Another cold decision. Another permanent scar. The next morning Harlan called me into his office. Langford's think tank is making noise about joining forces on a big climate bill. They want you to lead our side. Conflict of interest. I told him I could handle it. He studied me for a long moment. See that you do. No more surprises, Hayes. I left the meeting knowing exactly what the price of one more surprise would be. That night I drafted a memo recommending we reject the partnership with Catherine's group. I sent it before I could change my mind. Cause and effect. Always. The rumors started small. A whispered comment at a cocktail party. A pointed question from a junior associate. Then the photos surfaced, grainy shots of Catherine and me leaving the same hotel 6 months earlier. Harlan summoned me again. Fix this quietly, he said, or the partnership offer gets reconsidered. I spent the weekend in damage control mode. Calling in favors, planting counter-narratives, even leaking a fake story about me dating a male lobbyist. It worked. The chatter died. But the cost was the last fragile thread connecting me to Catherine. She sent one final text. I hope the corner office keeps you warm at night. I didn't reply. My parents' intervention came at the worst possible moment. They had hired Father Callahan through their church after Mom found an old screenshot on my iPad. The prayer session was supposed to be private, just family and the priest. Ethan had been invited under false pretenses. They told him it was a birthday surprise for me. When he realized what was happening, the protest erupted exactly as I described at the beginning. His voice cut through the incense like a blade. She doesn't need healing. She needs you to love her as she is. My father stood up, face purple. Mom covered her mouth. Father Callahan tried to continue praying louder. Ethan turned to me. Brittany, you don't have to sit here and take this. For the first time in years I felt something crack inside my carefully armored heart. I stood up. The chair scraped loud against the hardwood. He's right, I said. I'm not broken. The room went dead silent, except for the ticking grandfather clock. What happened next spread faster than any campaign scandal. Ethan posted a carefully worded statement on social media that night. Nothing naming Catherine, just a fierce defense of personal freedom, and a call out of conversion practices. It went viral in progressive circles. By morning my phone was exploding with messages from colleagues, clients, and reporters. Harlan called at 6 a.m. my office. Now. I walked in expecting to be fired. Instead he slid a folder across the desk. Inside were printouts of the same photos that had circulated months earlier, plus new ones. Someone had been following me. The board is meeting this afternoon, he said. Your name is on the agenda. Fix this or we will. I spent the day in a blur of calls. Catherine's think tank issued a supportive statement without confirming anything. My mother left 3 voicemails crying. Ethan showed up at my apartment with coffee and a hug. Whatever happens, he said. I've got your back. For the first time I believed him. That evening the board voted. They didn't fire me. They did something worse. They restructured my role, stripping the partnership track and reassigning me to a low-profile statehouse account in Nebraska. Demotion disguised as mercy. Cause and effect, final chapter. I cleared my desk on a rainy Friday. The corner office with the Potomac view now belonged to someone else. Catherine waited in the lobby downstairs, coat damp from the weather. She didn't smile. I heard, she said simply. We walked to the same coffee shop where we had shared our first real conversation years earlier. This time we sat at a corner table and spoke without codes. She told me she had been offered a senior position at a national advocacy group in California. I told her about Nebraska. Neither of us mentioned getting back together. The damage was too deep, the betrayals too many. Love had survived the secrecy but not the ambition. When we stood to leave, she touched my hand once, brief, gentle, final. Take care of yourself, Brittany. Then she was gone, disappearing into the gray DC afternoon. I flew to Nebraska the following Monday. The new office was smaller, the stakes lower, the winters brutal. But something inside me had shifted. For the first time I wasn't calculating the next promotion or scanning every room for threats. I called Ethan every Sunday. I started therapy. I even sent my mother a long email that didn't ask for forgiveness, just explained who I was. Some replies never came. Others did slowly. Months later I saw Catherine on C-SPAN testifying before a House Committee on Digital Privacy. She was brilliant, confident, exactly the woman I had fallen for. Our eyes didn't meet through the screen, but for a second I smiled anyway. The partnership, the corner office, the carefully curated life. All of it had cost me the one person who had ever truly seen me. I still don't know if I would choose differently if given the chance again. Some decisions don't come with do-overs. True or false? In the end, ambition always demands a sacrifice too high for love to survive.